special report.
Black holes are one of the strangest things in existence.
Neil Armstrong may have seen extraterrestrials on the moon.
When he spies a discernible shape.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
You can deny all the things I've seen, all the things I've discovered, but not for much longer. Because too many others know what's happening out there. And no one, no government agency has jurisdiction over the truth.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Full Spectrum Universe. My name is Rob Yaiche. We have an epic show tonight. We're going to be talking about timelines, bold predictions, all different types of light beings and light working, and all different types of avenues of the paradigm of time and how we transcend what we know to create a better future. My guest this evening is Yasmine Yaiche, and we actually met on Clubhouse. And from her work that I've seen on Instagram and a multitude of other places and on Clubhouse itself, she blew my mind, and I could tell that there was a connection and that we needed to get together and discuss so much of what she knows, because it is imperative for us to move into these future moments and really examine how we create this harmonious future and this database to help people excel as light beings. And as frequencies go up and vibrations go up, we need to be able to extenuate what we know of the paradigms of who we are and what we are. So with that being said, she is a medium. She's also a psychic too. And I'm going to bring her in to describe a little bit more about herself. But Yasmine, how are you?
Hello. I'm so grateful to connect with you, Rob. Thanks for co-creating with me and to your lovely Full Spectrum Universe audience. Thank you for joining us. I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So, I know you sent me the bio, but I wanted to explain how we met first, and I was going to let you go into what you do and tell the people in a little bit more in depth of your research and what you found, and where you stand within this realm right now. So go ahead.
Wonderful. And Rob, I just have to edify you first and foremost for bringing a community of workers together. Like, I just have to edify you for that, because I think it's amazing that at this time we all get to co-create and connect in this way. No matter where you live in the world, the fact that we get to have these deeper conversations and elevate each other's consciousness, experience life together, it's phenomenal. So conversations like these really make a difference. And I appreciate meeting you. We met on Clubhouse, and it's been great because Clubhouse is where I started sort of my professionalism with this journey. I've always had a sort of sixth sense that I never really understood or knew. Both of my parents have their own gift within their own right. Father could see behind the veil. Mom always had premonitions through dreams, and I never knew or understood what that meant. But fast forward a few years, and I can definitely share a little bit more about my awakening journey, because I know that a lot of people have questions about their experience. Like, when was that moment that you actually woke up? Like, what was that for you? And I'm a completely different person. Now I just say that I'm a medium on a mission. Of course, this is 3D labels, and it's cute and it sounds good, but I am a medium. I do see clients, and I basically help my clients evolve their wounds, the lessons of the 3D world, into wisdom, so that they feel empowered through their healing and that they can elevate through freedom. So I just have a goal to, connect with people like you, Rob, obviously, and just raise this conversation, just raise consciousness, awareness, allow us to all co-create in this magnificent way that is really leading to the transformation of New Earth. So super exciting.
Absolutely incredible. And it's so admirable, that when we meet new people and you hear that they want to help people, and we know that there's a lot of people out there who are somewhat genuine about it, but when I met you, you ultimately gave all of what you had to people, and that it was amazing experience to watch you in action and really give back in that manner. You are selfless in that, and it's super admirable, and it's an honor and a privilege to have you here. And you know, it takes a special person to figure out other people as well. And I believe you have that sense in you to really figure out what those traumatic experiences are for those people and sort of pull it out slowly so it's not like a real jaw-dropping shock moment, right? And that's how ultimately how we work through it.
Yeah, exactly. It's insane. And here's the craziest part. Like I said, I am a completely different person. I didn't know that these gifts would get to this way where I would literally be seeing clients. And although it is my calling, I sort of was getting signs about pursuing something on the more spiritual side, like pursuing something that is actually fulfilling me and bringing me joy. What I actually found from that experience is not only that I have this gift, but that everyone has the ability, especially at this time with the veil being so thin and all of these timelines, 2 days ago being 2009 to 2012 collapsing, a lot of people are starting to receive and recognize, oh my goodness, like I'm an intuitive. Like there's something that I'm connecting with, and it's my awareness, it's the universe, it's like I'm feeling this signal here. And so it's kind of cool because then, you know, you're right about something and you're like, all right, sweet, that's all that self-healing work and, you know, working on myself and recognition, again going back to that whole awareness thing of you know, yourself and what's happening in the world. So
One
it's
of the
pretty
things
cool.
too that I noticed is when you help people in that way, you're actually emboldening their discernment, and that now knowing of what they thought back then, finding out that they were correct, it gives them a bit more confidence into the future to take those stands and say, you know what, that doesn't sound right to me, and I'm going to figure out exactly what that means, and that's
Yes.
huge,
Yes,
huge.
it is huge. It's so crazy because I try to, when I am meeting with a client, for example, I get a lot of downloads. Like it's an immediate image about that person, and I can start putting the pieces together, and then I get more images. And sometimes, you know, our higher selves, our own guides, maybe even our passed on loved ones, any of our spirit team that's behind the veil, they won't always allow certain information about the person who's receiving the reading to come through. And that's for a reason, because we all have free will, right? In this experience, we all have the power to have a choice in this 3D world, but also there could be, some may say, things that are already written for us, that are predestined for us in our timeline, which could be the lessons that we signed up to learn, for example, which is general, but it's something that comes into our experience. A common lesson: love, loss, right? Success, patience. So I try, when I connect with my clients, not to be so like, hey, this is what's going to happen in 5 years' time. This is your exact future. But if that comes through, which it has before, I make it my mission to explain it in a way that allows them the opportunity to recognize this is not a self-fulfilling prophecy. You have free will. So any thought or decision or choice that you make in 2 hours is going to completely shift what that outcome could be. And I always say, you know, if it's written and time will tell, right? But ultimately, I only come to bring in the key pieces, like those missing puzzle pieces in between. And you, as the client or the recipient or the person who's hearing the message on the other end, can take that and discern, as you said, Rob, about that information. Like, what does that information mean for you? Only taking what resonates, you know, not following someone because they might see something differently, but saying, this is something for me to explore. I'm being given a perception right now on a plate from the universe, and it's offering me an opportunity to be expansive, to be open-minded, also offering me an opportunity to check in with my own values and like, really check in with who I am once again. Like, are you who you say you are? Or, you know, are you taking what resonates? Are you discerning? And so, yeah, and it's crazy, Rob, because I didn't actually understand a lot about discernment. And this is what's wild. Like, I knew what it meant, but I didn't really understand it until I watched your episode on discernment. So if you haven't seen that already, it's a few episodes back. I highly recommend, because that brought a lot of value for me personally. And just listening to that, I was like, yes, this is what's happening right now. Like, no one can deny the universe, like the whole globe is going through a discernment lesson collectively, right?
That's wild. That I appreciate that. Thank
Yeah.
you. And you know, When you go to people and you ask them about what is to happen in the future, right? You could get three different avenues or three different people sharing what they see, but it's like tailored through their perception, and they're
Yep.
sharing that with you. So it becomes this, like you said, this moment where if it doesn't apply, you let it fly. And then after that, you work towards figuring out what is the vital information within those phrases or in those key words. So let's get back to where this really started for you detail wise. What was that moment? And everybody has that moment where they're just like, oh man, like this just changed everything. Like this just totally took me off my feet. I have to think about this for the next week and a half and really get down to what was like that one moment for you.
Yeah, so crazy though, like how that one moment is similar yet different for everyone. Like everyone has that moment. And if you think about it, like if you know how there's different religions in every like different regions and different languages, but they all connect back to the same common message, right? And it's sort of like in America, in the Western world, we say at a certain age you reach your midlife crisis, and that's sort of like the westernized, modernized version of kind of like what a dark night of the soul is, or what an awakening experience could be, depending on again your perception and how you would explain that. So I always tell folks, no matter where you're at in your consciousness or your spiritual journey, it doesn't matter who you are, whether you claim to be a guru or whether you're just now asking those questions like, what is happening to me and what is going on in my world? Like, it's really not what I thought it was. You have, again, that opportunity to like really sit with that experience and explore and begin to ask more questions. You know, that moment started with me, honestly, almost 5 years ago. And it's different, but it's the same for everyone, as I said. So, like for me, it took a relationship to wake me up, but folks, it might take, you know, someone in their family passing away, or something that's, you know, them losing money, or, you know, it's like different for everyone, but it's the same in the sense that all of us have an experience that is catered to us to awaken. And it's specifically catered to that soul enough to where even if you try to ignore the signs that are coming through, the universe is going to continue to bring those same cycles until you're like, hello, this is the experience that you signed up for to wake up. So it's here. Are you ready? So yeah, for me, it was a relationship, just a person, you know, that I moved states for, who asked me, and I don't want to say just a person, it was very deep soul connection, but yeah, it was just like, I grew up with a Muslim background, and I still kind of connect with the faith as I connect, you know, with all of the faiths now at this point. But it's wild because I grew up with a very particular conventional route in mind. I was actually planning on going to medical school, which is so wild because it's like my soul knew what was going to happen at this time. And so that ended up, I got detoured from that route. So yeah. And, you know, fast forward, getting asked questions in the relationship about family trauma, generational stuff, like, you can't talk to me this way, being confronted with conditional love, which it's like, okay, wow, it took love for you to get it. Like, but yeah, that's really that's literally what I signed up for. And we all have that mission in a sense of, you know, understanding what unconditional love is, right? But even just this past year, 2020, I wasn't expecting to reach another level of awakening. And I think that that's kind of what happens in this journey. Like, you have that initial experience, and then you'll have different following like tiers after that that come and sort of rattle your reality until there's nothing left but bare bones and the truth. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Not gonna lie. I feel like really on top of the world now that I'm like, there's all the woo woo is actually paying off, you know? Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, one of the things that people, well, I'm going to actually be doing a presentation on this for we have an event on January 1st, and it's going to be all about spiritual meditations and ways to well, my presentation is deprogramming or shedding said programs, which is something like social stigmatisms and things like that. And it's going to explore what they are so we can spotlight what it is. And then once we spotlight what it is, ways to help create your own program and condition yourself to be the way you want to be through your own thoughts, through manifesting and meditation. And there's so many different things like that we can go over with that too. But, you know, for me, when we take what you just said in that moment and everybody has it, right? So it's infinite paths to source always, and it's through emotional triggers, traumas, and you hear this from everybody, or some sort of life altering event that might not be so socially stigmatized, but maybe intellectually stigmatized or something. Excuse me, something along those lines. And that is, it's this moment where your brain just, it literally like electrifies and kicks into high gear. And it's so incredible that it took you through somebody else and through some sort of relationship to detach yourself from the greater relationship to society. So it's like that relationship for you was embodying the social structures and how you kind of stepped away from it. And once you get to that point where it's like it's all bets are off and you're open to the universe, it feels empowering. It truly does.
Yeah, it definitely does. And Rob, I love what you said about how, like the healing and the trauma and the emotional triggers, like all of those things, society, you mentioned society, like society is crumbling, right? Normal never was. I always say this. And what's happening, as I'm sure many of your viewers are becoming aware of or already know, is this shift into completely new planet. And I was smiling earlier as you were talking because my guides who are here, and I've been channeling and praying and meditating before this live because I wanted them to have the space to bring in anything for anyone who might benefit from it. But I was smiling because they literally said to me, human beings are like a bunch of mice running around. Like that's literally what's happening right now. We're a bunch of mice running around. And I think that's interesting that they used mice. And I just got that connotation and that connection there. But it's interesting. It's sort of like I think what they meant, and a non getting too deep into the rabbit hole, but I think what they meant here is that we're basically like just, it's like we know a lot and we're carrying a lot with us, a lot of history, but we're running around. And sometimes we need to get to that point where it's like we've got to see the truth. And what happens, as you said, is because of society that's crumbling at this time, a lot of triggers, emotional wounding, it's going to come up, and it's going to challenge us to really look in the mirror and ask ourselves, what timeline do we want to be on? What is the reality that we want to, experience? I have this huge thing that I'm still trying to navigate. Is it past life? But it's around like loss of finances, like loss of a job. And that has happened to me in this life. 4 or 5 months before 2020 started, I actually was like unemployed for 5 months and I couldn't find a job, which is so crazy because it was like I experienced what a lot of folks experienced in 2020. And fast forward, I had to ask myself, and where I'm at right now, what timeline do I want to be on? Like, what experience do I want to have around me that's going to be supportive of literally the end game, which is love for me, right? The, marriage, family, all that stuff, and the house, and, helping the world. And I feel like that's what every single person who's on this planet right now, whether they're completely awake or not, has the capacity to step into. Like that is the mission that we all technically have. And I know, Rob, in the spiritual community, there's a lot of different opinions that not everyone here is a soul and not everyone has, good intentions. And I to that, I just say, just observe, right? Like we have to step into that state of like speaking our truth, knowing what's going on in our external world, finding that key that's trying to in our internal world, which is technically our heart and our soul, and basically zooming out from that point and observing. Like at this point, it's about focusing on that timeline because Rob, there was a channeled message I received a few days ago, and now my guides are reminding me of it again, but about the floodgates of heaven being open, which is essentially just meaning like abundance and blessings are coming to everyone, so long as we remember to give and basically focus on where we want to be. Yep.
That is it's I see that more too now, right? With all these people waking up, we seem to be gaining an abundance of love and people communing and coming together and doing group meditations and stuff like that. It's one of the reasons why we're also putting on this event in January is also that, and to make our intentions known for the next year. We're going to put our intentions into the universe and try and make it what we want out of it, right? And we're going to get to some of the questions in the audience too, because I know my friend Jerome is here, and he's a very adept at what we're doing right now too. And
Oh, perfect.
you know, it's it's great when I hear you say those things. It resonates with me because love is everything. And one of the things that we try and do as people is we try and keep a little bit of the constructs that we know of society, like marriage, love, family, housing. Those we have sort of have like a foot in and a foot out. But there's
Yeah.
moments where we dedicate more towards the spiritual awakening side, and there's other times where we have to kind of have this duality of stepping back into society as it is at the moment and kind of creating that reality that we want too. And it's, it's an amazing thing. And there are people out there who are good and bad. And we know that, and it's intention, right? We see people's hearts, so we know their intention. That comes
Mhm.
with our discernment. So there's a lot of stuff out there that's conflicting or confusing. But if it's right for you, then you're in the right spot, right? Like you're on the right track. So even
Mm.
though that there's things like I said where you're jumping back and forth a little bit, you still are working towards that end goal. So ultimately, you're ahead of the game.
Yeah. Rob, thank you for sharing that because you just brought so much. And I appreciate that. Like that, this is so important. I think this is going to be a great lead into kind of our topic about the timelines and premonitions, because basically what's happening is energies are merging together. So we live in a duality, polarity based world, right and left, for example, and there's different polarities for the purpose of us having, again, the opportunity to have free will, to make choices, to not be influenced by one experience, because mind you, we already carry all of that anyway. So the point of being a human being is to experience that difference, that dichotomy, so that you can heal, you can move through shadow and light and understand yourself better. But essentially, energetically, and what's happening with the collective as more people are opening up to their truth is this merge of, the polarities. And it's happening slowly. I wouldn't say at the pace of, Jupiter or Saturn. I think Jupiter is the slowest planet rotating, right? Is
One
it
of them.
Jupiter?
Yeah,
Okay,
one of
I'm
them.
pretty sure it's Jupiter, but yeah, definitely not at the pace that Jupiter's turning, but definitely not at the pace that Venus is turning, which is like 7 hours in a day they have over there. But basically, it's crazy. But basically, the timelines are merging together, right? And so what we're seeing is, you said, Rob, and I just love that you said this. This is, and I'm telling you, what you just said is a channeled message, because my guides gave me a check mark, and that's what they mean by that. Religion, or okay, I don't know if they want me to talk about religion. I probably won't. But
It's okay.
basically, the material world, what you said about the material world, and then the spiritual side, that's what's happening to a lot of people right now. Like finding your balance between your 3D world, building, your career, your life, your dreams, the physical aspect, which is what we're also here to experience, the physicality, right? And the duality, but also coming back to that oneness experience, right? That oneness perspective of, your own spirituality. And, when you get into this journey and you start to learn more knowledge, it becomes you in a way, but sometimes it's like you will become aware at some point if your crown chakra is overactive, if you're too much on the spiritual side, in the sense that being too much on the spiritual side isn't bad at all, but it's more so when you're too much on that side, you're forgetting to do the day-to-day things in your 3D world. So sometimes some people may experience that along their journey, where they're like so invested in the realms that they forget to pay attention to what needs to get done in their 3D world. That definitely happened to me. I'm still kind of integrating, right? As I'm channeling constantly a whole day, it just comes. And then I'm trying to focus on what's the life that I'm trying to build here. And so with that comes the discernment, again, of bringing in the times when you have these sort of spiritual practices, these rituals. It becomes you, right? You're sort of embodying it at that point. And it's who you are. It's becoming who you are. And then the material side comes in when you're like waking up in the morning and you're doing your whole spiritual rituals, being grateful, praying, meditating. And then all of a sudden you're like, let's go make some money today, or let's go to the park, or let me go to the nearby new cafe shop, or let me go spend some time with the kids, because kids are wise and intelligent. They have a lot to share. And so there's a lot that's going to be happening for the collective over the next few months. And I'm not just talking about, what's going on in the world, but I am talking about what's going to happen internally. And you're going to be pushed to explore your inner world. Like, what is the balance that you basically want to create? So yeah, I
Absolutely.
just thought that you said
Absolutely.
that. That's phenomenal message.
It's everybody's a work in progress. We're always striving to be better in both realms, right? In both aspects of that duality. It's that to me is the Homo sapien human nature that comes out, that drive, right? And one of the things we wanted to talk about tonight is the timelines, and this is a great segue to get into it now. So you had a mentor that shared something with you that was just it was wondrous, the fact that they were able to see this, but it was dire and a little scary to hear it. So
Yep.
I would love if you could relay what was said to you
Yep.
in this session that you had.
Yeah. So, and the timing, you guys, of Rob and I communicating and having this live now is wild because I've kind of connected more keys since that message with the timelines and what's happening right now. So, I had a spiritual teacher around me who was a psychic medium before I even knew that I had, some sort of sixth sense, right? And so this was at the start of my awakening journey. In 2018 was when I connected with her, and I at that time actually thought that like I might be in a twin flame whatever divine connection, and so I started to explore that, and that's how I came across her. So anyways, we were connecting and talking about divine connections, and she had shared something at this point. It was towards the end of 2018, the start of 2019, about what's going to happen in the future. And like I said, I'm not big on basically saying like this is what's going to happen, because the timelines are always changing and you have a part to play within yourself and the choices you make that's going to affect the greater good. It's the butterfly effect, right? But what I found interesting was it was very premonition or premonitious. I don't know if that's a word, but
It works.
before COVID, right? Or before, excuse me, before 2020 started.
It's all right.
So yeah, so basically, she said that there was going to be a time in the future where genders and any kind of identity label that would be inputted in a consensus, if you will, or what differentiates us in a way, is going to be removed, and that mankind will look like half white and half Asian. And so again, this is a premonition that came to her, a vision that came to her multiple times in the end of 2018, the start of 2019. And so I took that, I was like, no way, this is a load of like baloney, like this is not going to happen at all. And mind you, then 2020 happened, and I started receiving a lot of stuff about that year and what was happening in the world and what had been happening over the course of history. And I was kind of like, I don't know how I feel about that. And then I received a download in 2020 about another timeline that would exist. And I checked in with all of these other spiritual teachers, and they all confirmed this download within their own respective experience, perspective. And these other spiritual teachers, we all live different lives. So it's safe to say we're all in different realities. We just all connect through Clubhouse. And, for them to receive that same message, which was a future for humanity as well that would be flourishing, that would be filled with luscious gardens, farms, like going kind of back to the beginning of times, but in a way that is still innovative and advanced, where we still have access to technology, but technology is working alongside us, not overtaking the function and the ability for humanity to work or live, right? And so it was sort of like a healthy eco balance, an ecosystem. And my guides are showing me the vision again. So it's basically like a dome-like existence, pods, if you will, communities, villages, more tight niche. And so I do think that, again, the distant future is loosely timed. Personally, if I had to pick a time that's been coming up in some of my personal readings for shifts happening within humanity, and I wouldn't say to that extent that the spiritual teacher I connected with had gotten to, but it was more so that something was going to happen around 2023, 2024. And so I'm not sure like what goes on around that time or that year. And mind you, again, the only time we have is now. So literally like nothing, if a few hours is not guaranteed. So don't get too caught up in thinking about, the future and like but get caught up in the sense that you're like, I want to create a beautiful world. Like I want to create a beautiful future for humanity. And that's going to come from me healing my own stuff and working on myself and sharing and helping other people heal, sharing the message about, working on yourself and transmuting and finding your truth. That helps humanity. working on yourself is going to help humanity because it ripples, right? So yeah, and I did want to share this other message with you, Rob, and your audience. So
Yeah.
about this is what I was like saying earlier, but a few weeks ago I had been reminded of a time. This was during Scorpio season. So I'm not sure how many of you are connected with astrology and whatnot, but basically this past month, we're in end of November now. Sagittarius season has started, but basically the last 30 days was Scorpio season, and it's connected to death, which is a symbol of rebirth. When something dies, something new is born. And it's also connected to transition, right? And for some reason, the symbol of a scorpion. I'm not really sure why. I guess the name comes connective in that way. But I did have a dream around last year when a lot of the political things were happening in the world and between different communities. I want to be mindful of the video because I know, a lot of sites are censoring and stuff, but basically it was around June, July. There was a lot of break-ins, glass shattering, things like that. And essentially I had a dream where it was me in another planet with my friends and just a small community, and we were all standing on the edge of this balcony overlooking Earth. And it was so crazy because it was like us in this balcony, we see the planet, we see all the other planets, and you can see Earth like right in front of us. So I don't know how or where we were astrally, but it was that close. And all of a sudden I look around and, it's kind of like a Great Gatsby vibe is where this dream was. But I'm looking around, we're all enjoying ourselves, and someone is like, look up at the sky, and a bunch of people are looking up, and all of a sudden you see all of these comets coming down, flying into Earth, and then stars forming in the sky in the shape of a scorpion. I had no idea what the heck that dream meant, to be honest with you, but my guides reminded me of this dream just a few days ago, or a few weeks ago rather. So around Scorpio season, and I thought, okay, something is going to happen, which it did. And I feel like what's happening right now again is these little increments and shifts, right? Where collectively, as more people are joining your videos, asking questions, exploring different perspectives, like checking in with yourself, checking in with your loved ones, you're creating that incremental shift. Like it's literally shift by shift. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Some people may see that dream as something nefarious, right? But for me, when I hear what you were saying just now, I think of it as maybe, maybe more light beings or star beings are coming down and we're already here. So we're watching it from afar. We're already up
Yeah.
on that high rise. We've worked our way up to the high rise building and stepped out onto the balcony.
Yeah.
So we're seeing the whole picture of Earth and all of these different, what may look like comets, but it's a light show, right?
Yeah. I
So
love
it's
that.
light beings,
Exactly. Yeah.
and they're more and more coming here now because we're preparing for that crescendo moment, or that medium moment, that yuga cycle center moment, right? That 12,500 year mark where the tribulation is happening in front of us, and if we don't succeed past it, we're going to get knocked back into the Stone Age. But if we do transcend it, life will be so harmonious on the other side of it, right? And
Yeah.
that's why you were on a different planet,
Yeah.
because that's what that looks like. That's maybe what that seems like, is us going
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
stars and finding more of ourselves. So there was a lot that came through for me with that, but
Mm.
it could go both ways, right? So everything we know is a light and a dark message. So maybe there's two messages in there showing you that
Yep.
there's still that dichotomy of the left and the right, and it can go either way. It's in your hands on how you perceive that.
Exactly. Like, I definitely think it's important to educate yourself and to explore your sources, explore your resources. And a lot of that, again, as I mentioned, is checking in with what's coming through for you. Um, we can sometimes be so dependent on the external for answers, and especially relying on the external for validation of where we're at. And I think that you actually have more power than you realize, or than you might know. And if you feel like you already know that you have the power, take this as your reminder, okay, once again, to know and to own it. Because here's the deal: what you shift and heal within yourself is going to echo into eternity. So it's going to completely shift, as I said, that timeline. And the thing is, and Rob, I do want to share this because it's coming through for me too. But I got some keys, you guys, on it was kind of crazy, like the alien, extraterrestrial race thing, the future timeline about what humanity could potentially become, or what we have become, I guess you could say, in another timeline based on where we're at currently. And so I'm not quite sure if I shared this with you, Rob, but basically, spiritual Twitter, which is, I guess, a great tool in my opinion. I love going on there and speaking with the community over there. But some folks were sharing how there's a particular extraterrestrial species that is representative of the human race in the future. And why is this relevant? Like, even if you don't believe in extraterrestrials, or even if you do, it's relevant because it's kind of significant how the pieces fit here, because this species is known to be emotionless. And I found it interesting that now we are entering an age that is a use more technology to not only replace workers with, I don't know, again, with the censoring, but different technological human replacements by robots or something, right?
Transhumanism.
Yeah, and it's a real thing. There's a robot in a country in the Middle East that is in Dubai, that is registered as a human, like registered as her own, with her own
Really?
social. Yeah, so
I
I
didn't
think her
know
name is
that.
Sophia or something like that, and it's an AI robot. And if you go on YouTube, and it's quite fascinating how innovation allows people to have the knowledge and skills to bring this together, or maybe they had divine channelings to bring it together, who knows. But what's interesting is that the age, as you can see with social medias and where things are kind of trying to shift into from that point, it's almost like you could see how that end timeline would have been an extraterrestrial species that is emotionless, right? Because we're trying to remove humans with emotionless creation, which would be AI technology. But what I say to that is, again, take what resonates. There's not a need to be fearful of that. It's just seeing what's happening in different parts of the world and checking in with yourself and being like, okay, this is a lot of stuff happening. What do I need to do right now to focus on where I'm at on the timeline? Because
Absolutely. Absolutely. And one of
yeah,
the things that you're talking about with transhumanism is it's always technology can be good. It's always in who handles it, or where whose hands it falls into, right?
yeah,
And who's basically what their intentions are with it. And we are getting to that point where humans are becoming genderless, emotionless, all
yeah,
that. They're constructing a labor force that has nothing to do with the essence of humanity in a whole, right? They
yeah.
want us dumb. They want us, they don't want anything to affect us anymore. And that's one of the things that we talk about with programming. The
Mm,
programming where they keep implementing specific images. So when you see it, you become desensitized. So when you see it out in the real world, it doesn't become a sensation anymore. It's just like,
mm,
oh, okay, got it, saw it, cool, yeah. But
yeah, that's a good point.
it's absolutely wild, and transhumanism is a thing, and it's really serious because it started out with a lot of we're going to make the world a better place, and now it's in the hands of people who don't want anybody else there but themselves, and working towards an immortality as opposed to helping community. It's become individualistic, not communitorial, I guess you could say. We're making up our
Yeah.
own words tonight, but you
I
understand what I'm
love that.
saying.
Yeah,
And
that's funny.
one of the things you spoke about before was all these external type of sensations, or all this external stuff that's bombarding you. When you get to the point and your discernment is actually letting you internalize that, make that all that external abundance become internal work, is where I find myself that I think that I'm doing a lot of work now
Yeah.
because of that lambasting or that bombardment of it. And that helps.
Mm,
I filter it through my internal, and that's sort of a pathway. And we can get into all that other stuff a little bit later too. But
mm,
it's super crazy. That's crazy, the transhumanism. And I didn't know in
yeah.
Dubai they had an actual robot that has its own autonomy, I guess.
Yeah, it's literally wicked. But to be fair, like, and I want to touch on the programming part as well. But to be fair, the robot is like, she doesn't, like, if you look up a picture, you guys, like literally the other half of her head, Rob, is like completely gone. Like, it's a robot. Like, you can tell she's a robot, and obviously she talks like a like there is long way to go if they're going to try to replace and make us, because like she has certain emotions and stuff like that. Again, YouTube has a ton of videos of her, and there's other robots like her that are being made. There's a country in the East that is working on that, and I think it's just I think it's China, actually. China and Japan and Korea might be touching on this as well. So they're getting ahead on the technology, which I think is awesome. That there's people in the world who can create something like that. Like, what kind of brain to have to do that? But it's also intense because you're like, well, at what point will I be replaced? And I just want to assure you all, that is happening in your external world, think of it as an illusion, think of it as a distraction, and think of it as being real. Like, all of this is happening all at once, and you get to choose whether you want something to frighten you to the point where you feel you can't even live your most authentic expression, or whether you're going to choose to just do you. And the thing is it's programming, as you said. Like, every single aspect of our lives has been programmed into us from a young age. Like, literally, when they ask you what do you want to be when you grow up at 5 years old, or you have sort of these things that you're carrying with you that are programmed by society, programmed by generational tree and trauma, programmed from that trauma that's encoded in your DNA, which is true. And like I said, we're all at this time serving as the liberators of our family tree. We're all the black sheep of our family tree, which means that we have an opportunity to look at things from the vantage point of saying, this is really freaky and scary and kind of cool because there's so much intelligence that's here and smart minds. But then at the same time, it's like, it's real, it's happening somewhere in the world. And my world might not be directly in that world. I'm seeing that world, I'm seeing that reality, I'm acknowledging it. But I'm also going back to my own reality, because that's literally how time works. You literally can do that, right?
Absolutely.
You don't watch the media and all that stuff online, or on TV and stuff like that. You're going to get a different reality, right? So,
well, with the media, it goes back to MK Ultra and Project Mockingbird. We know that they've been working on these things forever, so they have the tools to essentially brainwash you. And going back to faith-based stuff, and people, they delve into religion, and religion is their connection. Not everybody does, but some people use religion for their connection to that spiritual realm. And people like Bill Gates, we've seen him go into the FBI and CIA headquarters saying, I can turn off the gene that makes people feel that faith or turn into that sort of person. That I have the video. It's
oh
been
my God,
seen
it's
all
insane.
over. Imagine how emotionless somebody would be without that connection, because I'm sure it's not just a connection to a higher power, it's a connection to each other.
Exactly.
Which is one of the reasons why we use these inalienable rights, because they're given to us by a higher power of some sort, where man is able to have freedoms, a man is able to have that free speech and not be censored, which we know we are. And we're working kind of in the confines of it here. And the reason why we do that, we also have a Rumble channel too, which is very uncensored. But to try and engage as many people as I can, I have to have a foot in both. As much as I don't want to be censoring myself in that manner, and I don't, because there's places where you can see that unbridled information. And we're starting to get things together where it's like big groups, like study groups, where we can go over this type of information too. But it's good to have that access in both. It's like being on Clubhouse. We talk about Clubhouse. You can go really far on Clubhouse, but if there's somebody out there who doesn't like you, it's curtains, right? And this is what we go up against all the time in this censorship realms. So it's good to have places where you can unload that true inhibition and that true speech to you, because it's cathartic to get it out sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, I love that, Rob. You have such a very powerful masculine energy, and this is what's literally transforming in the rest of the world, right? So the masculine energy that has been wounded on the planet for so long, as is the feminine energy, but primarily the masculine energy, which has been present throughout, like, politics, for example, worldwide, it's getting healed at this time. And we're seeing that shift where there's always been situations happening in the world, but if you pay attention, it's happening more and more, and you're seeing more of these distractions. And connecting that message I shared earlier about the bridge between religion and spirituality, I had this strange experience last night. Like I was just sitting down, meditating, just taking a moment to breathe and just like thinking about, the next few weeks, like my own 3D material world goals. And all of a sudden, I got this random thought that came to my head. It was like, why are there 8 billion people on the planet who all believe in different things in a way? Like they believe that they believe in different things, but like I know that they're all the same things. Like, why are there people across the world who are, hating on another religion or faith or race for all of these things when it's like at the end of the day, it's literally all the same? And what I got from that experience was actually a premonition, and it was sort of like a download. Like I literally saw like the gates of heaven, and this tends to happen to me because I do communicate with archangels a lot. Actually, before our call started, there was an angel that was standing right behind my closet over there. So anyways, I just had to share that because I think that means that there's good energy here on the show. But it's interesting because the message that I got was the gates of heaven opening, right? And I'm standing there and I'm looking down, and all of a sudden I'm literally seeing a piece of heaven, a piece of God, like literally leaving and going into all of these different souls, getting dispersed into everyone. So fractals of differences, infinite amounts of creation being spread across humanity. And the thing is that's why there is in the 3D world seemingly present differences, if you will, based on what has been taught to us or programmed for us to believe. But they're all different words, but they're the same meaning, right? Like religion, the Quran, the whole Bible and the whole Torah are in the Quran. And a lot of people in the Muslim community don't believe that, but also in other communities as well. And the thing is they're present there. It's just the way that the sentence is phrased is either in a different language or it's phrased differently, but it's the same message. So it's all about that perception. So right now, like I said, the bridge between religion and spirituality is kind of merging. A lot of people who were very much connected with one particular faith are starting to realize that there's more to that connection. And you can kind of pick up the pieces and see the patterns based on what's appearing in your life. Like I know for me, a few days ago, which, this whole Scorpio season, like this whole past 30 days to 3 months has been insane for me personally. And I know that if something's happening to me, it's definitely happening to people around me. Like there is not a doubt in my mind about that. But basically I was wondering in my head, like, I was asking the universe, and I'm like, why? I'm just curious, like, why did I sign up to have an experience where my parents would be divorced and I would be in a relationship that would not treat me the best of what I deserve, and I would experience trauma and I would lose money? And like, why am I having this experience where I wanted to like go to the mosque all the time and I wanted to go to like Sunday Islamic school, and yet my dad only taught me Arabic, but my parents never spoke Arabic in the home, and they didn't really pressure Islam on my brother and I. Like, why? I was asking all these questions, and I sat back and I was like, goes back to my message earlier. We're all the black sheep of our families. We're all the liberators of our family tree, which means a lot of us are going to have experiences that might pull us away from what has been traditionally normal for centuries before us. And that's not a bad thing. It's going to feel like that. It's going to feel lonely, but you actually have an opportunity to, again, sit with yourself and not have any influence from anyone tell you what and how you need to believe. Because I believe what you're experiencing right now is valid. What you're feeling is valid. It's coming in for a reason, and there's an opportunity to transmute and discern, as you said, Rob. So super cool.
That was that was heavy, but
yeah, it's a lot.
That brought me another moment of clarity, right? So one of the things I looked at was indigenous peoples across the globe, and we looked at their creation stories and how they thought they came to be. And they were so eerily similar, like you said, with small minor differences, but the connotations and all of the sentences were pretty much the same, from the Aboriginals to the Native Americans to the African Bushmen. It was all the way across. And imagine if we do get to this point where we are shaking off some of that family tree, that influence from the family tree, and imagine what our children are going to be like, learning from us as opposed to learning from our parents.
Yeah.
Because our parents, they might not have been some probably were, but some probably aren't. They aren't as awake or really hip to the game of this programming and haven't evaluated it like we have. So imagine what the next generation is going to behold. And this is actually one of the reasons why I'm creating that database that I talk about. And even like a conversation like this is going into that database because it's an exploration
Yeah.
of who and what we truly are. And, it's going to hopefully influence generations down the line.
Yeah.
And they will start off a lot further ahead than we had to. And so on and so forth. And exponentially, it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and hopefully make its
Absolutely.
way to across the world, so people can believe that right now is important. You are a light being. You are a light worker. You can all achieve your true potential whenever you want. You
Mm.
just have to say when, right?
Exactly. Exactly. You're absolutely right. And I think the footprint, the imprint that we're putting towards generations is huge. You know, there comes a point where again, you allow yourself the space in every day that you have to explore new things, new information that the universe is giving you, or that you can kind of ask yourself about, or that you can explore about what's happening in the world. But then remembering to have that awareness to refocus yourself back into what you want to co-create is sort of like the energetic opportunity that is being given to the collective. So it's sort of like you want that the blessings that's going to be coming through, the gates of heaven, like then be prepared for it. And that means being open and expansive to allowing, to receiving, but to also letting go, like transmuting what's no longer serving. And the thing is there's a lot of people that are still very much unaware of what's going on in the world, and it can be, like I said, very isolating and lonely. And know that there are communities that exist that are here to support. And I think, Rob, a full spectrum dictionary, a full spectrum glossary is huge. I think that's a phenomenal experience that people can have, right? To be able to act and learn in that expansive way is what is that's purposeful, right? It's connecting and intentional with creating that higher timeline for humanity. And I think a lot of us, sometimes we get to this point where we might not want to explore more. We might just say, I'm good. Like there's so much, shit happening in the world, for lack of a better word. Like, I don't know, like I'm good with where I'm at. Allow, because when you allow for more receiving. Like the universe will want to gift you and bless you when you take that inspired action, that initiative, when you use that masculine energy that every human being has that's within you for the betterment of creating something, right? Like materializing what you want to bring into the world. And so I want to jump back really quickly, Rob, because I have my day job and then my spiritual business, and occasionally I nanny, and I love it because these kids, I am learning that this generation, like the oldest I'm babysitting currently is 9 years old, but this generation, they're pretty much tuned in. Like every single time, I mean, the parents, they're phenomenal parents that I get to nanny for their kids, right? They trust me. But it's interesting because a lot of them aren't, when I have these conversations, aware of a lot of the things that are happening in the world. They just have a different perspective and reality, right? Based on where they're at and how their reality has presented itself to them. But what I find interesting is that a lot of the kids aren't aware of what's kind of going on, but then a lot that are. And so this is huge because we can sometimes get to the point where we forget about the future generations. And I want us all to know that you have an opportunity, whether you realize it or not, to really shift this future generation. I'm going to be honest with you. I do think that a lot of these kids now are also going to shift us. I think it's already happening. I think that there's so many kids speaking out about things that are aware of what's going on, even within their own family dynamics. Hopefully I'm still good there. I had a low
No, you're still
battery.
good.
Okay,
You're
good.
still good.
Perfect. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's really interesting. Just like discern everything and take it with a grain of salt, and remember that now is the time. Now is the time to build, my guides are saying, to build your egg. Okay. To build your egg.
Your nest egg.
Your nesting.
Build your
Exactly. It's a
foundation.
time of nurturing. Exactly. So, and I have no doubt that, we're moving in that direction. It just doesn't seem like that sometimes because of what we're seeing in the 3D world. But this is why Earth is one of the hardest planets to take over, if you will. There's a lot of planets who have lost some battles out there. That's why this planet is very difficult, because why? We have the mind, we have the ego, we have the creation within us that has the brain connected with the soul inside, right? So this is just a vessel, but we can still have that experience where our mind can get manipulated. And so it's so important at any moment of your life to just be intentional and not be scared, not be worried, but rather say, okay, like, universe is giving me choices right now. Which one do I choose, right?
That's absolutely, absolutely. And, one of the things that you said that my friend Omar from Watchers Talk says all the time, all the children that are coming out now, they seem to be ahead of the game, right? They seem to be a little bit like learning things a little bit faster, a little bit smarter, starting to walk faster and younger. So they're actually tuning into that conscious frequency that's giving them these abilities to download this information, also while looking at it and putting two and two together and functioning within that space. And with this database, like you said, one of the things that I'm doing is I'm essentially doing what our ancestors did, the Native Americans did,
Yes.
the Aboriginals. They made cave paintings, and those cave paintings were hieroglyphed, and they were put on walls because they knew the stone would last forever. So this is my way of carrying that same torch as they have done, right?
Yeah.
And like finding out what the now is and transferring that to the future, the legacy.
Yeah. I really appreciate you saying that. The ancients are really at a point where they're supporting us on the other side, right? Our ancestors, and many of us anyways that are on this planet, are ancients. We've served very powerful roles. I think everyone has, but it's phenomenal to remember and recognize that community that was here before us, that did things in a good way, right? That did things in a way that was honoring the land, honoring creation, really using the power of the moon and the sun to guide. And I understand that, while innovation happens, so many things shift and humanity continues to evolve. But I do believe that we're going to get to a point where it's going to feel that connection again, and it's going to be supported with, we might not have the same life that they did in that sense, but we're going to be able to properly commemorate them the way that history or our history books from schools might not have, right? So,
Absolutely.
which is huge. And, there's so many things that I've been, like with these kids, for example, that I've been talking to them about, and the stuff that they're learning in schools, it's like some of the stuff that I learned when I was younger is not the same information, and vice versa, right? Like, I know that it was just Thanksgiving in the US this past Thursday, and it's traditionally a holiday about giving thanks, but also about Christopher Columbus and like colonization. But when I was growing up, they didn't teach us that. They told us that Christopher Columbus was a good guy. And I didn't know until literally I started nannying these kids. There's different families that I nannied for, right? But one family in particular, the kids were like, no, Christopher Columbus is not a good guy. And I'm like, that's wild. Like, they did not teach me that. And so, but here's the other end of the stick. I also learned, in middle school in ancient Egypt, they have this like long swab, okay, that they stick up your nose all the way up here, okay?
Right.
And they use this swab to punish criminals, to punish anyone who disobeys the royalty, right? That's,
Wow.
commanding. So this long swab that goes up your nose, the point is torture. The point is to basically remove, which the ancient Egyptians knew, the blood-brain barrier that's in your nose, because, as punishment, you get sick. And so I was asking these kids about this just last weekend. I'm like, did you guys know? Like, I find this very ironic. And I was I was telling them about what's happening in the world in a very lighthearted way, because they obviously have a different experience and reality that they have, right? So I wanted to respect that. But I'm like, did you guys know that I learned this, in school with the ancient Egyptians and this swab? And they're like, what? That's crazy. No, we didn't learn that. Like, that's not in our history books.
That's
But
wild.
they know. They
That's
know these.
wild.
Yeah.
The
Isn't that crazy?
synchronicities are crazy, right? And
Right.
it's truly remarkable how exploring that past can bring us right into the present, right? And really do internal work on the present. And I know we're getting close to, right up at the end of the hour here, But I would love to have you come back on and we can do this again. This has been such a phenomenal conversation.
Thank you,
I
Rob.
love talking to people who are just so open and really just it's a vibe, right? Like it's really a
Um,
vibe. And it seems that we connect on that level, and it's truly remarkable. So I just want to thank you again. It's been an honor and a privilege to have you here, and I'll give you the last few minutes to say whatever you got to say to the people, and then we'll close up shop.
Thanks, Rob. Well, I appreciate you. I think it's like I said in the beginning, I think it's phenomenal that we get to have these conversations and like really elevate together. Like just it's so fun. I can't even go out in public and have small talk anymore. Like I literally start talking about this stuff with strangers and I just, I think it's just cool because it's making life more meaningful for us to know ourselves more. So Rob, thank you so much. I did want to ask you because I know that you said some folks had questions. Do you want to go through those or what do you prefer?
We could do that. Yeah, we have Jerome asking, how can we describe what it is like the new Earth in relation to shifting of values?
Okay.
That was
So,
that was back when we were talking about the premonitions.
okay. So, what is it like with the new earth? Okay, relation to shifting of values. So, basically, the shifting of our values is in connection with the shifting of new earth, right? So new earth, a lot of folks in the spiritual community, Jerome, if you're still listening to this, which I hope you're still on, but basically a lot of folks in the spiritual community have different viewpoints around this. And so again, just take what resonates. But I do believe that the sort of merge is already happening between old earth, which means a lot of the older energetic paradigms where we see, for example, it's play out in the 3D world through politics or through government or through communities, through nature, right? Natural disasters. There's all sorts of elements to how it appears. It's merging with this shifting of values, which means that as things are shifting in the external and sort of becoming this tsunami of events in all aspects of life, is so our values within us. So each of us will not only see the chaos or the love that's spreading across the world, right? The light and the shadow on the external, but we're also going to have an experience that comes to us personally that will, again, as Rob was saying earlier, trigger us and push us in a corner to where we have to sort of shift that value. We have to sort of accept our truth. So that's what that means there. It's going to happen naturally. I mean, it's like, every year that a year passes for your life, you gain something new about yourself. You're growing, and that's part of that evolution. It happens again incrementally. So yeah, hopefully that answered your question.
Absolutely. And we have another question that says, I'm a Scorpio, born October 31st. Does that really matter?
Earl, okay. Uh, you know, I would say if it was last year, I mean, it does matter. So, okay, the reason why I say that, I think everyone's birthday has such a crazy significance when you look back in history to see when your birthday fell with a particular event in history, right? Especially the time. But Halloween, or I don't even want to say Halloween because it's not Halloween across the world, I don't think, but October 31st, that day energetically is known as the veil being thin. And I do think our ancestors found that connection with Halloween at some point in history. I'm not too sure about that. But the reason why I said last year is because October 31st last year, there was like a full moon that hadn't been on the planet
Yes.
for I don't even know how long.
Centuries.
Yeah, a long time. And I can tell you some crazy shit happened to me that day. So, in a
Without a
beautiful
doubt.
way. Yeah. So, yeah, your birthday's special, my friend.
Absolutely. And I just want to thank Earl for the super chat. That was absolutely generous of you, my friend. I appreciate all the help we can get to create more broadcasts like this and keep the position moving forward. And we're working on it. We're trying to get revenue streams to expand what we're doing here and everywhere that you see Full Spectrum Universe. But again, Yasmine, this has been so incredible. I can't wait to do this again. I'm already looking
Yes,
forward to it.
I would love to. It's my pleasure, Rob. Appreciate it.
Awesome, awesome.
Oh,
So, guys, check her out on Instagram as well. I'm going to put it in the description later. I'm going to put her Instagram feed so you guys can go follow Yasmine and what she does. She does a lot of Instagram lives, which connect and touch people, and I've seen it firsthand. It's pretty amazing.
that's
But yeah, I mean, this is it. We're at the end of the show, Yasmine. How'd you feel about it?
I feel so full. So thank you. I feel energized. And that's telling me that I'm speaking to another very conscious starlight being because, we can be drained sometimes. And I don't feel that. And I love that we also both wore purple, which definitely confirms the crown right energy right there. So
I had like 2 or 3 shirts laid out, and I'm like, you know what? I think I'm gonna go purple. I
that's
like,
crazy. Wow.
I
This is
like the purple
profound.
shirt. It's a little bit out of
Gotta
my
love it.
color range because I'm not usually vibrant colors. I'm usually like dark blues and blacks, and but it's all right.
It's just
Yeah,
energy and synchronicities. I love it.
that's what it is. I feel very
Oh,
full
well, I
too.
appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Oh, I'm glad. Thank you so much, Rob. I appreciate it. And I look forward to the next time.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. This has been Full Spectrum Universe. My name is Rob Yox. That's Yasmine, and we are out of here.